Basically, I'm sure all of you know that we were put on a sanction by our accreditation agency last spring, an unwarranted sanction of show cause. And so one of the requirements of that is that City College had to file a report on March 15th, and that did happen. We know that the commission met and has decided the status of City College, but they won't make it public until July 7th. I'm actually pretty confident that we will be kept on sanction. In fact, I'm expecting that we'll be kept on show cause. Even our special trustee has said that he thinks that that's the best outcome that we can expect. The report that we submitted in March reflects a lot of work that's been done by the college community, but it hasn't been work that's been done in any kind of democratic fashion. In fact, I would say that the interim administration in this past year has been using fear and manipulation to push forward their agenda, which actually doesn't necessarily address the accreditation standards that they're claiming they're trying to address. So like a summary of what they've done in the past year. Well, actually tomorrow at the Board of Trustees meeting, the 2013-14 budget, the tentative budget, is up for approval. And this is a budget that I consider a betrayal of the public trust, because it's not using the Proposition A funds as the voters intended. This administration is in the final stages of a drastic restructuring of the academic affairs. 24 deans were given their pink slips last March, and I think June 28th is supposedly their last day. And tomorrow at the Board of Trustees meeting, they're supposedly approving a new crew that has been hired through the streamlined process. But I looked at the document on the website, and 11 out of the 18 positions have blank lines in them. So not only have they done this drastic restructuring, but they've done it ineptly. They've instituted a new participatory governance structure that has diminished the voice of staff, faculty, and students as a replacement of the old shared governance structure. And I'd say that they've successfully downsized the college through their own inept enrollment management. And I would say that they have attempted to do union busting. They have unilaterally cut benefits and pay, and that's part of what's reflected in the tentative budget that is up before the board to be passed tomorrow. This morning on the Electronic Faculty Forum, here's a quote by actually it was yesterday morning, of one of the teachers. "What I know is that this last 6 months have been grueling and egregious. This is the worst working environment I've experienced in 30 years. I used to be proud to say I worked at City College of San Francisco. Now I just feel abused." And I think that that sentiment reflects a lot of the morale of the workers and the faculty and the students at City College. Okay, there have been some points of hope over the last year. In November, San Francisco voted for the parcel tax by a margin of 73%, showing that they do care about City College. The San Francisco Board of Supervisors passed a resolution in support of City College by a unanimous vote, and I found out later that this was despite the fact that they had gotten a letter the week before this vote from the special trustee and our current interim chancellor telling them to butt out. The Labor Council has passed a resolution, and various other labor locals throughout the state. And I actually think Shanell's being voted as the student trustee by an overwhelming margin against an incumbent and the fact that she has been very active in the State City College Coalition is a show that the college community does not support this current interim administration. And last but not least, what I'll mention is the fact that the union, the California Federation of Teachers, and our local AFT 2121 has filed a 300-page complaint against the ACCJC. Some of the things in the complaint accuse the ACCJC of violations of California and federal law, disregard for labor laws, disdain for the collective bargaining process, failure to follow their own standards. They're being accused of conflicts of interest, inconsistencies and corruption, lack of transparency and accountability, lack of open democratic process. So the complaint was given to the commission on April 29th, and the commission, as required, investigated itself and totally dismissed all the allegations in this, almost 300-page complaint. The U.S. Department of Education has taken a different view of it and has told the ACCJC that they need to take a full, to do a full and documented response and have it into the commission and give it to the Department of Education by July 10th. So this is an organization that doesn't take recommendations to heart. In fact, when Shanell and Rafael and I were at the Unitarian Church on a similar panel to this, Rafael brought up the prevailing narrative that he said that he believed. And basically it was that the ACCJC came in 2006, they gave us a series of recommendations, and we were so arrogant that we just didn't do anything about it. And that we just felt like we were too good to have to bow to the recommendations of the ACCJC. Well, in fact, I'm looking forward to addressing this point because Rafael said that if I could convince him that he's wrong, he will eat his words. So I'm hoping by the end of the evening he will agree to do that. So I want to clarify this point. It is true that in 2006 the ACCJC came to City College and made a series of recommendations. But the idea that we ignored them and didn't address them, the paper trail actually tells a much different story. And so, for instance, we had to file a series of reports on the progress that we made on these recommendations. And the ACCJC in 2009 accepted these reports. Madeline Mueller is kind of our resident faculty archivist and historian. And I mean, she says that this is not just a rubber stamp process and that they don't necessarily accept the reports from all colleges, but they did accept our reports. Well, then they came in 2012 and they said, well, yeah, we accepted your reports, but then we found out that you had actually lied in these reports. Well, in fact, the visiting team in 2012 states in their report that they made, after the visiting team conducted all their, whatever they do. This is on page 10, quote, City College of San Francisco made a concerted effort to address the recommendations of the accreditation evaluation team that visited the institution in 2006. New processes, programs, plans, and infrastructure modes are a result. The team report went on to document many good things. In fact, Madeline has a paper called The Cup Half Full, which is available on the State City College website in the resources section. And so, and it's pages of the good things that were in the report. Now, I'm not saying that City College didn't need to work on issues, and they certainly did. Did that visiting team report indicate that we needed to be put on show cause? I don't think anybody reading the report thought so. Even the people who wrote that report, it turns out. Okay, so back to the recommendations made in 2006. One of the major items in the complaint filed by the union is the fact that these recommendations that were made in 2006, when they fully accredited us, suddenly became deficiencies retroactively in 2012. In fact, the ACCJC never indicated that City College had any deficiencies in 2000 when they gave us these recommendations in 2006. It wasn't until they applied the word retroactively to its previously requested progress reports. I don't think I read that right. Anyway. Furthermore, when you compare the recommendations of the last 6 years to what they now label deficiencies, they basically, there's no comparison. They don't, beyond the title, there's not much content in what they're claiming. So let's talk about an institution that doesn't address recommendations, unlike City College, which did. In 2009, well, first of all, the union complaint by the CFT, the California Federation of Teachers, and our local AFT 2121, I mean, basically the the commission just dismissed everything in it summarily. I mean, they didn't even, take one iota of it seriously, and they will have to. I'll be very interested to see what their report is when they have to respond to the Department of Education. But back in 2009, there's something called the Consultation Council, which established an accreditation task force to review and provide advice on the accreditation process. The Accreditation Task Force was configured to represent the broad-based constituencies of the Consultation Council. These are not lightweights. These include representatives from the Board of Governors of the California Community Colleges, the Faculty Association of the California Community Colleges, the Chief Executive Officers, the Chief Instructional Officers, the Academic Senate, the Classified School Employees Association, the California College Association, and the Chancellor's Office of the California Community Colleges. Okay, so this task force was put into place following expressions of concern shared by representatives from the institutional groups that I just named. And to date, it has resulted in the formulation of 7 recommendations. And so I have a chart here with 7 of the recommendations and the ACCJC response. I'm running out of time, but you can read it yourself. But like, for instance, a typical response is that they cited what it characterized as numerous mechanisms for feedback from member institutions and expressed its belief that it is giving ample feedback. So basically, they're taking the recommendation and saying, well, we're doing that. Yeah, it's going to take too long to read it. But basically, they basically dismissed every recommendation made, such that the conclusion of this report is, although both the Accreditation Task Force and the ACCJC refer to the spirit of collaboration, and collaboration would appear to be necessary for a peer-based process to succeed, it is unclear how much collaboration will actually occur. As always, we'll keep you posted on developments, and then it's signed by the 2 people who wrote the report for the task force. So, if I haven't convinced you to eat your words yet, I guess I'll have to just keep going. Thank you.
So, yeah, I got sworn in today at City Hall. I'm officially on the Board of Trustees, and I'm really excited about that, and I'm happy to work with Trustee Jackson, Trustee Mandelman, and everyone else on the board. I came to CCSF just like, any other working class individual here in San Francisco. My mother, was certified nursing assistant, father was in construction, and, they had never gone to university. And I would be actually the first generation of my family to actually pursue a university sort of degree, so I'm really proud of that, and City College is making that a possibility. I exited out of the foster care system at 18 years old, and right after I got out, I went to City College because I thought it was the next best step for me to move forward in my life. And I went to City College in 2002, and for a couple semesters, did well, and was okay, but figured out that I needed to make money and had to go back to the full, workforce and work full time, and got into, nonprofit work and community work for about 7-8 years, and then finally got the opportunity to come back. And, I love City College very much. That's why I've signed on to be on this Board of Trustees in such a crazy time as now, where we're dealing with accreditation. And also, what I want to talk about is the bigger picture, because City College of San Francisco, we're not in a silo. We're not separate from what's happening in the nation and what's happening in California. We are a big, I would say we're the crown jewel of education reform, and what they want to do to community colleges, because it's not just about us. And this is a plan that has been thought out for a long time. And, we look at Republican, Democrat, but really, when you look at education reform, it's both. The Democratic Party is just as much at fault as the Republicans and the Tea Party in terms of restructuring public education and making it easier for students to go into the private system and have to rely on the private system. Colleges like University of Phoenix and Hill and DeVry and other colleges. So we're really part of history right now, and I feel actually really honored to be someone that's here right now with Wendy and with others, part of the same CCSF coalition, to say no, we're not going to accept this plan. We're not going to allow these corporate, carpetbaggers to come into our school to dismantle what we know is an amazing institution. And it's phenomenal to me how we got from being what New York Times said one of the best community colleges in the nation to now being so riddled with all these deficiencies and all these things. I think it's total BS. And I think it's all part of a bigger plan. It's a bigger context that City College, we were the largest community college in the nation with 110,000 students. Now we're at 85,000 students. And looking at this, there's so many players. There's so many people that have their hand in the cookie jar. And it's really disgusting to me because if you connect the dots, you'll see this is a huge network of individuals that stand to gain from this. The figure was it 680 billion? I believe it's like $680 billion that is stand to be gained from reforming our system. $680 billion. Just think about that. If you were an investor, if you were someone looking at a new frontier to make money, and you say, "Oh my God, look, $680 billion investment." I mean, this would be like everyone's jumping on board. And you look at private foundations who claim to be philanthropists and wanting to do good for the community, like Bill and Melinda Gates and Lumina Foundation. These individuals are really investors. They see this as an opportunity. And City College is a big part of that because we are the largest community college in California, and we were the second largest college among all colleges in the United States, which I think is really phenomenal. But we have so much to be proud of, and I feel so angry about how we've been totally, misportrayed in the media. Saying that we're so dysfunctional, saying that we have all these things that are so wrong with the college, when we know how amazing we are and how many people can testify to how much we've done for their lives. I mean, Danny Glover, Cheryl Jennings, like all these people that have come through our doors, Norman Yee, who swore me in today, Supervisor Norman Yee, and his wife. His wife was a teacher at City College. There's so many people, even General Hospital, nurses, everyone that have been touched by City College. And now we're under the sanction and feeling like we're so low. But, I resist all of that. So, I came back. I'm a reentry student, and I'm an adult, and I came back really wanting to pursue, I'm a social justice person. I'm an activist, and I thought about for a while, like, what do I really want to do? And urban studies spoke to me because I feel that we really need to redesign our communities. We have to think about new ways to live because we're not, we have to think about sustainability. We have to think about how we're going to move forward. And so I chose urban studies, and I came to City College to be able to transfer, and I'm hopefully applying to UC Berkeley, applying to Stanford and other schools to be able to transfer. But City College not only, because is about transferring, it's about vocational skills, it's about so much more than just a transfer program. But now with the education reform, it's saying to most students, there's this narrow path that you have to take. If you're coming to City College or any community college in the nation, you have to choose a major, and we're going to prioritize folks that want to come in and want to transfer. And what does that mean to me? That means debt. That means students going into more debt. And the debt market is huge. When you look at foundations like Lumina Foundation, they basically have all the Sallie Mae money from the student debt market has been dumped into Lumina Foundation. And what has Lumina Foundation done? They have actually given a grant to the Accreditation Commission for community and junior colleges. They gave a $1 million grant to the Accreditation Commission for community and junior colleges. Isn't that a conflict of interest? I would think so. How can an accrediting commission take funds from these folks and be accrediting our colleges when their whole agenda is to downsize and to privatize and to push more students into the private market, which I think is completely outrageous. But there's so many, like I said before, there's so many hands in the cookie jar. So in July 2012, our school was hit with the show cause sanction, which is totally unwarranted. I wholeheartedly believe that we should not be on show cause. I don't care what anyone says. We should not be on show cause. There's no reason in the world that City College of San Francisco should be on show cause. We had no prior sanction, no warning, probation, anything else on the spectrum, no prior sanction. And then we automatically end up on show cause, one step before closure. This is unbelievable, it's unwarranted, and it really plays into the fact that there's key players that really want to push forward this agenda. And City College, like I said, we're the crown jewel, we're the largest. And you know, if you look at the AFT and the California Federation of Teachers complaint, all the colleges that have been targeted are the best performing schools in California. What is up with that? The best performing schools in California are being targeted by this commission. The best performing. Academic standards are high, but they're going after us now for governance and finances, which before wasn't even in the purview of this body. Now they're picking at that. But what is the thing? Like, the state defunded City College $53 million within 3 years. If you probably look at other community colleges, they've been defunded. So we're being defunded, just like you look at the foreclosure crisis and other crises. You know, Naomi Klein that talks about the shock doctrine. You know, we're being set up to fail. They want us to fail so that, you know, in privatizers that see this $680 billion opportunity can come in and make room for their markets. I mean, we're dealing with the MOOCs, and I hate saying that because it's actually a really derogatory term, but you know, there's mass online classes that are now being promoted and other online schools that are being promoted. That's one piece of it. You have this whole placement testing industry that's popping up. You have these administrators that have expertise in reform and all these things that now have a market. There's all these different markets that are now emerging because of this education reform agenda. And City College is right in the middle of it. And I'm so dedicated that we have to resist here. Because if we don't resist here, we are going to see the rest of community colleges in California be dismantled. We have to take a stand. We have to take a stand. So I feel really honored to be, you know, a newly elected person that's on the board as student trustee and to fight this fight. Save City College. You know, we came about in July 2012 when that show cause sanction came down. And, you know, we were students, faculty, community, all coming together. I remember our first meeting, it was the Lesbian, Gay, and Transgender Center on Market Street. And everyone came in there, and the people were in outrage. They're like, what's going on? How could this happen? Why are we one step from closure? What can we do? How do we get organized? And from there, you know, the Save City College Coalition was born, and it's had many transitions. You know, there's been some folks that first started off with the coalition that thought, you know, we should just go along with this whole accreditation process. We shouldn't organize outside of, you know, what they want us to do. We need to just set up these work groups and get on the work groups and that's it. But then there were other folks who were like, no, we see what's really happening. We need to resist. We need to formulate a strategy to resist this education reform. And I want to talk about Pamela Fisher because the more I learn about this woman, the more I despise her. Because I feel that honestly, when this woman came into our school, you know, she came in as a consultant to help us find a new chancellor. And then all of a sudden, I guess within 4 days, she became our chancellor, our interim chancellor. And this was before the show cause sanction came down. And I honestly, wholeheartedly believe she is the reason that we are on show cause right now. I believe this because she has said that she has close ties with Barbara Bino. She talks to her every day, you know, which I wouldn't be putting that out in public if I were her, but she feels great about it, whatever. You know, she has this staffing agency that specializes in getting, you know, high-level administrators into colleges. I mean, this is like the perfect opportunity for this woman to come into City College and to create this sort of chaos, you know? So I honestly believe that the reason we are on show cause is because Pamela Fisher was able to get information about some deficiencies they could use against us and put us on show cause. And Thelma Scott Stillman, she's our current chancellor right now. She has been on record, on tape. You can go to saveCCSF.org. She's been captured on tape saying that she does not support equity. She says, I don't support equity. I will not support equity. And me and 4 other students have met with her after a night-long sit-in we had a sit-in Collin Hall and to request a meeting with the chancellor, and finally in the morning we got a meeting with her, with Larry Kramer, with the Dean of Student Activities and others, and she stated that she wasn't going to meet any of our demands and she doesn't support equity. So really, there is, the thing I want to emphasize the most is this is a big network. The network includes the Democratic Party. It includes some of these other folks that are part of this industry, the placement testing industry, people that have staffing organizations that can get new administrators into these colleges once they feel like the other administrators aren't worthwhile, and other folks, faculty. And this is all part of this effort to drive more students into debt, to drive more students into the private system. So what we're facing now, we're facing an unfair budget. We're facing an unfair hiring process. We're seeing that internal candidates at City College of San Francisco are not really fairly being even considered good candidates. I'm really sad to say, Dean Doré, he was dean over downtown campus and also over the business school. He now is leaving because of all the stress. He's going to Arizona. There's a number of folks that have just retired, ESL teachers, other teachers that have just retired because they can't take it. Because it's interim administration that doesn't care about our school, that doesn't have any connection to this city, that is connected into this education reform, model and policy and way of thinking. They're pushing good people out of our school. And it angers me, it frustrates me, because what can we do? We've talked to the administration, we've tried to get in meetings with Thelma Scott Skillman and with others, and they don't want to meet with us, they don't want to talk to us, because they have an agenda. And that agenda is not about equity, it's not about supporting the community that's here in San Francisco and the Bay Area, it's about money. It's about that $680 billion investment opportunity, and that's it. And we can't rely on these folks. We can't depend on these folks to give us justice, to help us to save our school. And we can't pretend that they're here for us. We have to see what is reality. These folks are part of a larger picture. And one thing I want to point out, the Student Success Act. The Student Success Act, the Student Success Initiative, is basically going to push down on students that after repeatability, limiting the Board of Governors fee waiver, limiting financial aid, it's all these different measures that are going to push even more students out of the public system. This act, myself and other students went up to Sacramento. That was early 2012. We went up to Sacramento. Karen, you were probably there, right? You went up there too. We went up to Sacramento, and we had a strong showing from City College of San Francisco. And I believe some of even our board members went and lobbied against this act. I know that higher-ups in the state chancellor's office said that they want to make City College of San Francisco pay for resisting the Student Success Act. They want to make us pay, because we had a strong showing. I mean, we even had banners and everything in that meeting. We were, it was really great actually. And but what this really means is that more students are not going to have access. They're not going to be able to get the affordability that community colleges have to offer. And like I said, it's really a business model. It's all about this business model of pushing more students into the private system. So the Student Success Act, we resisted it, and now I definitely feel there's a retaliation on us for resisting that. But what are we losing in the process? We've cut out of our mission statement cultural enrichment. We've cut out lifelong learning. We've cut out civic engagement. Does that speak to what San Francisco represents? What is San Francisco about? Civic engagement, absolutely. That's what we've always stood up for our rights. We've always protested. We've always been involved in lobbying our government and doing the things necessary to get what our communities need. I mean, cultural enrichment. What is that? Diversity studies, ethnic studies, all these things. I mean, cutting that out. Lifelong learning. Our seniors that utilize the school to have some access to the community, to have some quality of life. They're being freaking cut out. It angers me. But as me as a new Board of Trustees member, I definitely, this is not going to stand. We can't let this institution that we know is a valuable institution, that we know is amazing, and that has trained and supported thousands, hundreds of thousands of individuals to just be dismantled like this. And we have to take a stand, because if we don't stand now, to stand for. I mean, this is like, come on, man. This is like I don't want to use crown jewel again, but I mean, this is huge, you know. And if we lose, how many other community colleges are going to lose? Because they don't have the resources we have. I mean, we have so many organizers and political folks that are involved in our college that can really fight this stuff. We have to take a stand. And, you know, I just think the CFT complaint that's come out, the AFT-CFT complaint is amazing. I mean, if you get a chance to look at it, it is almost 300 pages of evidence about this accreditation commission, about ACCJC. And, you know, even looking at before, Nanette Asimov, who's a reporter with the Chronicle. I mean, when we first started out last year, she was our worst enemy, right? I mean, she was just like, we hate that woman. But now, you know, she's even turned the corner and she's seeing some of the light and seeing some of the truth. So I think that, you know, we have to stand for justice. You know, we can't be quiet. We can't just let things slide, and we can't just play politics. This is people's lives. You know, we're dealing with the lives of hundreds of thousands of working class people in this city. Me, myself, I represent 90,000 students, and I take that seriously. 90,000 students that are, you know, that depend on this school to be able to have some upward mobility in their life, to be able to move forward. We can't play games with this, and we can't be scared. We have to stand for truth, and we have to stand for justice, and, you know, that's my view, and that's what I want to do on the board, so.
Me. I guess the one thought of it that I've been thinking about that today, and I've been thinking about what a dark, horrible, miserable time it was when the California Supreme Court 4 years ago said that, was it 5 years? That was 2009. Maybe it was almost 5. I defer to Karen Sagan. But, you know, as we were standing outside the California Supreme Court waiting for the decision, and we got the decision, the California Supreme Court said, yeah, the voters are right, you're second-class citizens. And I'm an emotional person, I cry easily, but I was like, you know, weeping, and then, you know, went off to go get arrested with other people. And dark and horrible as that time was, you know, times get better. It gets better. And I strongly hope that City College does not have to wait 4 or 5 years to climb out of the hole that we are in now. I don't disagree with, I think that the other panelists and I agree probably on more than we disagree. There are points on which I would quibble, things that, you know, I disagree. Some, I think that CFT has done a service by raising questions that I think not just CFT has, but I think trustees throughout the state, I think faculty throughout the state, I think people. The proper role of an accrediting agency is an open question, and I don't necessarily believe that the ACCJC is part of a conspiracy, although I can understand I come to that conclusion. I do think that they have created for themselves a role, you know, that's open to debate. I think that they're well-meaning, well-intentioned people who are trying to save community colleges in California as best they can. I don't think that necessarily everybody at all the community colleges they are trying to regulate agrees that that's the proper role for them in all ways. And I think that CFT has raised some very interesting issues. And other people, other than me, the members of the Board of Trustees of San Francisco, I think are free to engage in that debate. And when we are, hopefully soon, although I don't know, standing on our own feet and can say our school is running well and we are out of this ditch, I hope that Trustee Jackson and I will engage in, you know, whatever bodies there are that are looking at how community colleges function in California and what the accrediting process should be. And I think we'll probably have thoughts about that based on our experience. The other thing that I would say is I do think, I just want to emphasize, Wendy is not saying that things were fine before the ACCJC arrived. And I'm not saying that things have that everything that has been unleashed by the show cause sanction is positive, because it's not. A show cause sanction does damage to an institution. And so they, by imposing show cause, they were, I think, expressing, I don't know, I can't think for them. I think it was appropriate to impose a sanction, and I think there were significant problems at City College. I think many of the things that don't work at City College now go back, before the ACCJC, and I think even particularly in sort of a dysfunctional board, which I think we have had, they didn't create that. All of which is to say, the ACCJC debate is an interesting one. I think the job of the Board of Trustees is to make the college work well, and right now hire a chancellor that can lead the school, which is important. I want to say another, just a couple of words about our interims, or at least the current one, Scott Skillman, who I think is, again, a well-meaning person who has an impossible job. The decision was made, and the board bears responsibility for this. The board, the state chancellor, the ACCJC certainly, but the decision was made last year that City College should basically be, in significant respects, blown up and rebuilt from scratch. That was not Scott Skillman's decision. Scott Skillman was, came in on an interim basis to implement policies that had been approved by a board. And to the extent that we as a board believe that those policies need to be changed, or that we need to go in a different direction, we need to do that to the extent we can. But I think that she is within the confines of her experience prior and the task which she has been given, which is this kind of rebuilding from scratch. I think she's doing the best she can. And as far as our special trustee, I actually think he has provided some useful guidance and has been a positive force at the college, at least since I've been on that board. So those are quibbles. I don't know that undermines the fundamental points that Wendy and Shanell have made, but it's my liberal nature to quibble. So those are my quibbles. I'm gratified again that people care and are here when you could be doing other things, and I'm happy to. And I know Chris is happy to engage with the dialogue about City College and where we're going.
Very good. Okay, so questions, Karen.
So actually, this is not a question really so much as a comment. If I may be permitted to make some comments. So as many of you know, I served as Academic Senate President for 3 years and stepped down in May, and I'm now serving as Vice President. So I was involved in the process that wrote the first accreditation report. And I was also at that point involved in a process of the struggle with the Board of Trustees. So Chris and I were on the opposite sides of many issues. One of the things that I was not so aware of, but became more aware of in hindsight, was the role that our chancellor at the time was playing, which was to be perfectly honest in this environment, he was kind of playing us off against each other. He would come in and say to me, oh, that sounds great to me, but I don't think the board would do it. And then I would, learn that he would basically be represented to the board that he had done something because the academic senate made him do it. Mm-hmm. So, but we loved him. He had been our chancellor for some time. He had been an administrator before that, a teacher before that. He'd been at the college for many years, since I was in high school practically, I think he was there. And so when we went through that first process of writing the piece of the accreditation, I actually went back and listened to something I misremembered. We had gone to the Board of Trustees and said, we have to write this report, and I had come away with a message saying, but some of the board members said, but we should just show the good side. We should put our best foot forward. It was actually Griffin who said, this report should be a very positive one. We should just put our best foot forward in the report. And was not ready to really get down and sort of dirty and say, here are some real problems. The Senate, at some point, felt this report is too sugarcoating certain things. And when the team came for the visit a year ago, we had put together a report saying, you really should look at these other things. which they looked at some of them. But if you look at the 14 recommendations, the things having to do with finances, the things having to do with many of the other things, whose responsibility is it to make sure that those things happen? Is it the Senate's responsibility? Is it the board's responsibility? It's the administration's responsibility. And yet, that report a year ago gave the administration a pass, right? And at the time, I was kind of happy with that because I love Griffin. Right? I love Chancellor Griffin. I had not said anything bad about him, although really, if you looked at what I had said, and you were an accrediting commission, you should have said, well, it may be the opinion of the Academic Senate that it's the board that's doing this stuff, but actually it's the chancellor who's responsible for this stuff. So I think it's the administration that should be looking at this. But he was given, a pass a year ago. I'm going to be looking with great interest to see what's in the accreditation report that comes out that they share with us at the beginning of July. Because when I look at the March 15th report that we submitted, where we were supposed to respond to all those 14 recommendations, and I look at what we've had to say about what have we done, what haven't we done, there I really see that there are some places where we have not done those 14 recommendations, and who is it that hasn't done it? It really is the Chancellor's office. Pam Fisher said, I'm going to make sure this thing gets done, that this thing gets done right. I'm going to make sure that the accreditation liaison officer is in my office, and she literally put the accreditation liaison in her office, and she moved into another room, right? And has worked very closely with the accreditation. And yet, looking at our list of all the things that we say we have yet to do, I see a lot of stuff there that it was pretty clear in the recommendation. You should do this and that. And it's like, but our administration hasn't done it. So is ACCJC going to give another pass to the Chancellor's office and say, you guys are still in trouble, but it's not the fault of the Chancellor? It's everybody else's fault with the Chancellor's office? Or are they going to say, because one of the things that the complaint, the CFT complaint says is that the ACCJC aligns itself very closely with CEOs. And that to me is one of the things that I'm really looking at in terms of, do they really present fairly? Are they really fairly assessing or not?
Didn't you already see the report?
I'm sorry?
Didn't you already see the
I saw a draft, I did not see the final, so I'll be looking. I'm sorry?
The visiting team report.
Right.
Oh,
right.
Well, I think these are unpacking the history of how City College got to where it is important, and I think that sort of, I don't know whether Don Griffin, it is possible that that the environment had Don Griffin in an impossible situation. The story of the ACCJC, the narrative of the ACCJC, is that no CEO, no chancellor could succeed or run the college as it was constituted before, and that any chancellor was going to be in the business of primarily placating different constituencies, and playing the board majority against the board minority, the different constituency groups against each other, and that the administrating of City College had become basically this game of kind of like, politics and maneuvering and, keeping out a fire, and that there wasn't administrating going on. And I think it is entirely possible that there is a pro-administrator bias at the ACCJC, and that they may have concluded that it must be that this environment made it impossible for anyone to be an effective administrator, and therefore we need to change the place top to bottom to make it possible for someone to be a good administrator there. I think that's the direction.
If I could just respond to that, even though I'm not in the audience. The problem, what you're getting at is what the ACCJC report itself talked about, governance and governance structure of the college, which is essentially a set of advisory committees, very complex, number one. Governance problems. And number two, individual people, trustees, administrators, chancellors, Lord knows who, overstepping their bounds, almost perhaps to the point of malfeasance, but just sort of not going beyond what their actual titles and duties are expected to do. All of that, and I've read the reports in detail, were, from my perspective as an outsider, addressed thoroughly by the change in government structure, which had nothing to do with firing 24 school and academic teams. Nothing. Eliminating department chair functions. They're two separate things. Governance structure was addressed. We're going to have meetings, we're going to define goals, we're going to clarify goals, and implied in that is that if you don't obey what you're supposed to be doing, you will be sanctioned, you will be fired. That's how an outsider like me, reading all of the reports, came to the conclusion that, oh, City College is doing exactly what's needed, has done exactly what's needed. In that sense, the two interim chancellors did the right thing, but then they went way above board with all the firings, and that's the
To play devil's advocate, which I think is my role here, I think, and again, my speaking to them is a little ridiculous, but I think their view would be that it was so, that the problems were so embedded in the culture, so pervasive throughout the institution, not necessarily in the rules or the formal governance structures, but actually just in people's ideas about what they could do and what was in their purview and what wasn't. That the chancellor believed he really couldn't make these changes, even though maybe on paper he could. And that people around him throughout the institution believed that the limitations on what the chancellor could or could not do were real, you know, whether or not they were on paper or they were part of some formal structure. It's just the way things were done. And so I'm not saying you're wrong, Tom. I'm saying their story, their idea of City College is that there was a cultural problem, up, down, everywhere, and not that you have to get rid of everybody. And I think that we will end up not having gotten rid of everybody, but that there needed to be a broad.
So
I just have to say,
Shanell first, then Karen, and Bill.
Okay.
I think the thing that stands out to me is that how many students have we served, and how many students have we improved their lives that have come through the City College? I mean, yes, there's issues within our governance, within the administration that need to be improved, but I mean, that still doesn't equal up to show cause. I mean, we can't like take all this stuff and just say, okay, let's just take the show cause. I mean, it doesn't make sense. And if you look at even accreditation agency standards, them giving us a sanction is unprecedented. This should have never happened. We can sit here and beat up on ourselves and say we could have did this better and Don Griffin did this and the administration should have did this or that. The bottom line is that we should not be on show cause. And that's it. You know, and if you know there's things that we need to prove, let's do it. But the sanction part of this is unwarranted, and we can't just like dismiss that. We should not be on show cause, and we should not be in this position.
I just want to say one thing.
Karen's next.
The story that you're telling, you're right, that is the story. That story was basically written by Larry Paper, their PR guy last summer. He retold things and turned a different set of facts into that story, and that's the story you've heard and you're telling.
Except that that's a story that I've heard from, I mean, I don't know, maybe Cambridge did package it. It's a story that I've heard from a lot of people who aren't necessarily Cambridge. Like, it is a narrative that's out there. It may not be completely true, it may not be entirely true. It is very possible that had City College been left to its own devices, had accreditation happened 2 or 3 years later, that a new chancellor would have, had a new chancellor had been selected, and that person would probably have made changes in how City College operates, and might well have been able to make all the changes that he or she might have needed to make the school governable without wrecking the kind of devastation that he would experience.
Bill's next, and then Chris, and then Mike. Bill?
Okay, I wish I could channel Madeline Mueller, because Madeline Mueller is the owl. She's the historian. She knows everything. But I refer to April 26th of last year, that horrible Board of Trustees meeting, and that was the hail and farewell to Don Griffin, and then later all hell broke loose. The elephant in the bedroom is that wonderful Don Griffin is suffering from a brain tumor. And he was so vulnerable to anyone getting his ear, pulling here, pulling there, and so on. If we were to go behind him to Phil Day, and I give 2 sources privately, who felt that his scandal was more kind of a frame-up in order to get rid of him, This guy ran a very, very tight ship, and was very good. He was very good in terms of listening, but in other words, if you're looking for a very strong administrator, he definitely was. Where things really started to deteriorate, now I'll refer to the trains to show you how bad things have become. I'm from the English department, and the Board of Trustees got so sidetracked in terms of micromanaging the English department's program in terms of eligibility for courses and sequences and so on. And that's when you start pulling your hair, but that's not your job. Your job is to mind the bank. Your job is to, is like Karen said, to mind the store. And they were given a pass. And so, I mean, I just want to kind of correct that. They really, in many ways, and I said it before, and I'm going to get histrionic here, that when the news came out in July, I thought, fire them all. Fire every member of the Board of Trustees. They didn't do their job. And so then to blame the faculty, and to blame the deans, and blame the department chairs, boy, talk about passing the buck. So, I mean, I want to correct that in terms of the historical context. Okay, and I hope Don Griffin is completely repaired from the horrible thing that he had to go through. I don't know what his current health is. But in spite of his limited capacities, I think the thing that was good about the man was that above all, he was trying to keep the hemorrhaging from happening. And he did everything in his power to keep people on board and so on. He just ended that there were some real parasites that got a hold of the guy at the end.
He was operating in the most difficult environment that community college chancellors have had to operate in decades. He was being hit by these incredible cuts, and then again, like the most divided college,
He was physically disabled.
Yeah.
Let's go to Chris, because we kind of have a list. Chris,
So I guess part of my comments are going to be just about some priorities, and then just because I think I probably on the whole agree with the panel, like everybody. I think there were some legitimate conversations around just the role of board members, the role of administrators. I think myself, I'm pretty clear on why I came to the board. And I'm here, I come from a very low-income community. My goal is to help very low-income people access higher education that have not traditionally been accessing higher education. And whatever the roles are, that's fine, but my process to get there is I want people who don't traditionally access community college to get there. Because that's what most of the policies that I've always worked on were always about. In terms of our situation in the past, I think Trustee Williams is correct. When you cut $53 million out of a system in 3 years, it's not like it was gradual. It was like 1 year is 20, the next year was like 15, and the next year was like another 20. And it was just
the middle of the year.
Yeah, it was just gone, like literally gone. And they were like, we'll deal with that. And I don't know if any financial person in any capacity that could just deal with that on top of, because people forget, like, although we got deemed for governance issues, a lot of it always trickled down to money. We had to lay off so many administrators who did some of these functions because we did not want to impact classes. A lot of people in other jurisdictions just cut classes, and then they just cut faculty pay, and then they just demolished the part-time faculty and said, well, we're going to keep the administrators, we're just going to go after the instruction side. We kind of had a different, and then we kept our categorical, like our EOPS and those programs whole by backfilling them. So our just general thoughts and our general values as San Franciscans were just different. We were like, well, we'll go after the administrators first, and we'll do everything that we possibly can to keep our categorical programs, which are mostly programs for low-income and minority students, whole. We'll keep our faculty as best as we can whole and make sure that we try to keep our classes intact. That was our philosophy. Did we do a great job? I'm sure we did some things that, you know, we could look back on and said, hey, maybe we shouldn't have done that, like cancel an entire summer school. But on the whole, those were our values. And the ACC, JC, and other folks just didn't look at it that way. They don't share the values. And so some of those decisions were very much values-based decisions. I also look at it when they say we had a divided board. And I'm like, well, we did, and that's what democracy's for. And, you know, I have a constituency, a very specific constituency that elects me. My constituency that elects me is very different than constituencies that elect other trustees. Even myself and Rafi, we are both, I don't know about this liberal thing, Rafi, I thought we were progressives. But we are both progressives, but we have a different electoral map that brings us to the same board. And we might have some disagreements. Like, I always get to this point, and I'll be very brief. You know, there was a shared governance committee that somehow came up with the decision that at some point we should close down the Southeast campus. That's, you know, a campus that is like really close to my house. My mom and my dad went there. I have a lot of friends that, you know, just went there. What am I supposed to do? Like, I get roles of trustees, and I think we all understand that. But when there's a campus that serves a lot of people, and we had built that from a campus that served 135 people to a campus that is around 1,200, sometimes 1,500 people, what are you supposed to do as an elected representative? Are you supposed to just, because it came through a shared governance community, differently? We have very healthy debates and we don't rubber stamp things. Does that mean we're dysfunctional? I think that's a good, healthy byproduct most of the time of that. So, you know, but I think, you know, just moving forward, and I think there are some really good things that we should be focusing on as, you know, board members and as, you know, constituency. You know, one thing is the budget. The first budget vote comes up, you know, tomorrow, and I think we should all, you know, come out and have a lot of good public debate about the budget that's there. You know, should students be paid a minimum wage, or should they still be paid $8 an hour? You know, should we have so much in consulting fees? You know, should we, you know, look at the classes, and should we look at faculty and their pay?
Should Bob Umbrella stay?
There are, like I said, there are a lot of issues, and you know, the budget is one of them. You know, we have to look at our consulting contracts. We should definitely look at them and at least ask questions about those things. And I think those are, and we should also ask about the administrative restructuring. You know, I strongly think we lost diversity. If we're going to talk about diversity, I think we have now lost diversity within our administration. And I think that was a hallmark of Don Griffin.